Welcome to Satisfactory, a first-person automation-based factory builder where you get dropped on a foreign planet to harvest it for your employers. With the release of Satisfactory 1.0 on the horizon, I wanted to make a quick video on some of the tips I've compiled from playing early access for the last few years. So as a good fix-it employee always says, let's get to work and be effective with 10 quick tips to jumpstart your fresh save starting September 10th.
Planetfall complete. Please ensure the integrity of your multi-purpose exploration suit is at 100%.
Okay, you've made planetfall to a foreign world. Let's talk about some of the hostile creatures you will encounter. Equip your Xenozapper and defend yourself. There are 4 types of hostile creatures in the game: hogs, spitters, hatchers, and stingers. For both the hogs and the spitters, you just use your Xenozapper or any other weapon, dodge their attacks, attack them a couple of times, and don't forget to collect their remains for the MAM. If you don't feel like dealing with hostile creatures, you can go into the options under Gameplay and Creature Hostility and change it from default to passive. Press Apply, then Confirm. And then you get to go have a little pet. Come here, Mr. Hog. And if you feel like dispatching him, you can go ahead and do that. The Hatchers are an annoying type of enemy that spawns 3 little bees, I guess is what I would call them. And then they come and attack you. And it's kind of annoying, especially when you have the first weapon, the Xenozapper, because they always end up hitting you. It's almost impossible to get away with it. And then they just keep spawning if you get too close. So in order to get rid of these, the easy way is to crouch. And you sneak up on it. And as we get closer, you'll notice it doesn't open up. And you just crouch, stay crouching, walk right up to it, and give it a little poke. And that's how you take care of those. The final hostile creature, as you can see here, are called the stingers. But they're basically spiders. So if you don't like spiders, the game has a couple of options built in. The very first one is if you go into Options, and then under Gameplay, and Arachnophobia mode. And what this does is it turns them into relatively harmless looking cats. And now you can see there's a bunch of kitties on the ground down here. Also kind of terrifying. Now if we go back into Gameplay and turn the Creature Hostility back on, and of course Apply and Confirm, now they will try to attack us, and these spiders jump very far. So if you didn't know, spoiler alert, here they come. And the cats make a crazy cat noise, and it's also pretty terrifying. Probably not quite as terrifying as the spiders jumping at you, though. Now, if you feel like getting rid of them altogether, and you have advanced game settings turned on, you go into advanced game settings under creatures and just disable the arachnid creatures, apply, confirm, and no more spiders, no more terrifying kittens. you're good to go. Third tip, let's talk about starting base location. And I am not going to tell you what the best base location is. However, there is a website called Satisfactory Calculator that has all of the nodes, and you can even change it to the current 1.0 branch and show all of the node locations. So if you want to pick a specific place, you can click over on the right here where it says resource nodes, and for example, turn on normal limestone and say, okay, I'd like to be by the normal limestone, or the normal iron ore, or the pure iron ore. And it shows you where all of the node locations are on the map. There's various resource wells like nitrogen, crude oil, water, and geysers. And these are all available, selectable on this map. And it gives you even things like all the power slugs, artifacts, collectibles on the bottom. Various things that you can do with this map. And then the layers, you can actually show like where the spawn locations are. So it lets you know which spawn is which. Tells you if you can like show all of the pure nodes, for example. So it's a really good tool if you want to pick kind of an area where you're planning on starting. So I would suggest take a look at Satisfactory Calculator. There'll be a link down and below. And there is also a production planner. And we're not going to go into great detail on this. However, let's just use an example of the very first space elevator part, if I can find it here. Called the smart plating. Here it is. Oop, I passed it. Okay. So the first time you get to smart plating, the assemblers are going to make 2 per hour. Or 2 per minute, sorry. So this gives you basically a list of miners, what order of assemblers, and what each item is needed to be made. There's also a list of items as you go through. So if you're planning larger builds, it even tells you how much power it needs down on the bottom there. So basically it kind of gives you a list like 74 screw, 46 iron ingots, 46 iron ore, obviously. So like all the different things that you're going to need to create 2 smart plating per minute. Okay, 4th tip, the control button. So let's play a little scenario through. You've made planetfall. You've cleared all the enemies of the area that you would like to start building. We said all the enemies. Okay, maybe a couple more enemies. You've found a home for your hub. Such a cool animation. You've cleared all of the rocks off of the top of your iron nodes. And you're ready to start building. As a new player, you've figured out in your build menu that you need a miner. So you grab your miner, you place it on your node. You grab your smelter. You place it down something like this. And you grab your constructor and you place it down something like this and throw some belts in. And you realize building on the ground, it looks a little crooked. Yeah, that won't do. Let's fix that. Enter the control button. So we're going to delete all of this. We're going to place our miner down. Then we're going to place our smelter and we're going to hold control. If you notice, it snaps to a green line to the miner. And then we place our constructor down and we hold control again. And it snaps another green line. What does that mean? That means it's lined up from the output of one machine to the input of another machine. So now, when we place it down, Even on the ground, without foundation, it's lined up nice and straight. This also works quite well when you're building on foundations. Makes for a nice, neat looking factory. So same thing, we're going to take our smelter, place one down here, flip it around the right way, and we're going to hold control and just follow the green line. Highlight them in the center of the platforms. Then we're going to grab our constructor on the next line and see the green line again. Lines up nice, and then there's two green lines now, one to the machine there to the right of it, and then one to the machine that lines up the input. This one was being a little weird. But there you go. Nice, neat looking factory. Using the control button also works for laying foundation. So if I place this foundation on the ground, we'll do a 4 meter. And then we hold control. We notice that when we hold control, it's snapping to some sort of imaginary grid. That's called the world grid. So if you place one foundation here, and it works the best with both 2 meter and 4 meter, the 1 meter doesn't quite always line up. And then we place another one while holding control further down the road here, and this happens all the way across the map. And then we line up one of these and line it up to that one. As you see, it lines up exactly with the other foundation down there. Tip number 5, let's talk about snapping and how items can snap to other items. So we finished our building, we're setting up power, and as we go through, run this to that machine, run this to that machine, and we realize I'd actually like another power pole here. So we press our power pole button, and we click the line once, and then if you aim at the ground after you've clicked the line once and place your power pole, it takes the line and moves it from where it was to that new power pole, so you don't have to redo your power poles. Going back to the use of the control button, if we take a splitter, point it over an existing belt, and we hold the control, it snaps to the belt. And that way you don't have to replace the belt. You can place the splitter in line directly on the belt, and any items on the belt will flow through either the merger or splitter. Next tip, tip number 6, duplicating buildings. This game ends up having a very large build menu. So in the Q button, when you go into build, you will find multiple things, and you would click an item out of it and place it. But that seems like a lot of work. So press your middle mouse button and just place that item. And middle mouse button again, place another merger. Middle mouse button again, place another smelter. And middle mouse button again, we'll do belts. So whatever you're aiming at when you press the middle mouse button, it just duplicates that item. So anything that you have out already, you don't have to go back into the build menu for, and I just placed that belt wrong. Yes, I did. But it just makes building infinitely faster if you just aim at what you're looking at. If you already have it already built, makes building a lot faster. On to the next one already. Number 7, build options. When you build an item, so let's middle mouse click again, grab another merger, you'll notice on the bottom there's a whole row of different things like rotating, and it actually tells you there to hold left control to snap. There's also H, which locks the hologram in the position that you want it to be, and then you can move around and use your arrow buttons on your keyboard to nudge it in a direction. And if you hold control, it nudges it a small amount. And we can get out of that by pressing H again. Again, it tells you the middle mouse button is your sample building or duplicate building. And then E for quick switch. So this changes of all the available items of whatever that item type is. So in this case, mergers, splitters, smart splitters, programmable splitters, so on and so forth. So all the items in the game, you can hit that E button and it'll switch between different types in that category, which in the build menu is in that row. Now lifts, for example, have another button that's called R for toggle build mode, and if you notice the little arrows on the top, it's coming outward. And we hit R and it goes inwards. So that just allows you to change the type. The R button also works for placing foundations. So if we grab a 2 meter, holding control does something weird here. It's being a little odd with the... There it is. Okay. And if you hit R, you notice it went to vertical, default, and there's also a zoop option. So let's build a default 2 meter. And build another 4 meter here, default. It's just building one at a time, right? So as we build different, platform heights and whatnot, it's just building a single one, so you have to click it each time. To save time, you can change it to different modes by pressing that R button. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to change it to zoop. Make it a 4 meter. Line it up with that. Press R for zoop. Click it. Stretch it. Click it again. And you just built 10 in a row. And then if we press R again, it goes to vertical, and it does the same thing but vertically. 10 again. Nice little trick. All right. Step number 8. Let's talk about power. So the power grid in the game, first thing you want to do in the very beginning is pick up all of this stuff on the ground. And you press E, you pick it up. Now if you hold E and you run around, you'll pick everything up that you run into. So it's a good tip in the beginning of the game. Just make sure you're holding E when you're running everywhere so you're picking up stuff off the ground. So let's take a look. We have to go over here to our craft bench and scroll down. Don't mind all this extra stuff. Find our biomass, and we're going to build biomass. Now, in the very beginning, you won't have this. It's one of the first unlocks. But you can take biomass, or even the leaves, or the wood, or the flowers, and put them in your biomass generators, and they will burn as power. But this just burns a little more efficiently, so we're going to craft some of the biomass. We're going to go to our biomass generators, slap some of that biomass in there, and you'll notice nothing happens. Why is that? Well, there's no power pole connected to it, so we're going to connect a power pole. And the way I do it is I usually do 2 power poles right away, just so I have enough connections, because it's 4 connections for each pole. You take 1 to the left burner, 1 to the right burner, and 1 to the other pole. And then you have sort of multiple connections out. So if we hover over this, if you notice the line that I'm moving my mouse, on the left it says 0, right? But I go to the right, it says the capacity is 20. So down on the bottom left, our capacity. And you can do that with a power line as well. So if you take that power line, move it over to here. And now we're connected, right? So now we move our arrow over to the right and we see that we're consuming 5. And the production is 5. And the max consumption is 5. Now what's the difference between those? Okay. So let's let this machine fill up and we'll be right back. Okay, so now you notice this machine turned yellow, which we'll get to in a second. But it's full. If we look at the power output again, now it says consumption and production are 0.1. And it's just because it's connected, but the maximum is 5. What that means is the machine is essentially off. It's not running, so it's not consuming any power or producing any power, but the maximum that it could use is 5. So let's connect this one, and now watch what happens. Now everything turns back on. It goes from that 0.1 to 13. And if you notice, consumption, production, and mass consumption are all at 13, because everything is still running. So that line will be straight when you look at it. And if you look at the machine, it shows like that one was 4 megawatts. This one is 4 megawatts. If we look at this pole, it says this one takes 8. Oop, yep, 8. Okay. So if we connect the 8 to the 13, do a little bit of math here, what's going to happen? You're going to hear that noise. Power grid shuts down because we went over our capacity of 20. So the maximum consumption is 21. We can only produce 20. So therefore, because everything was running, it shut down. So that means we need to put more biomass in our second burner and flip this switch, this fuse breaker. And now you'll notice all the lines change here, but on the right, if you hold your mouse to the right, 40 megawatts of capacity, 21 of consumption. So always watch those totals. Alright, 9th tip, the machine lights. Now we hinted on this in the last one, showing you the yellow light. Let's talk more about that. So machines have that little light rod on the top, and you can see these are green. There's 4 different types. There's red, yellow, green, and then like a white or blue color. And we'll go over each one of those individually. So what we're going to do is place another machine here by middle mouse clicking, and you'll notice it's red. Okay, so what does red mean? Red means it's got no power, right? So there's 2 meanings for this though, however. So if we connect it to power, let's just add this to the power. Still red. What does that mean? It means that this doesn't have a recipe. So it can mean both that it's out of power or that it doesn't have a recipe. So we're going to pick, let's say, iron rods. Give it a recipe. Now it's yellow. Yellow means it's not getting any input. It's on standby. So that's the most common one that you're going to find, is that things are either not running efficiently, you're not getting enough materials. Pay attention to those numbers, 15 per minute, 15 per minute. You can overclock it. Obviously, nothing's going to happen because this machine has no input. So let's overclock this one. And you're going to notice it's going to go from 30 per minute to 45 per minute. We missed it. It was a little too close. But it changes to that whitish blue color, signifying that it's overclocked. All right, 10th tip. Let's talk about the mass delete option. At some point in time, you're going to say, I'm done with all this stuff. Let's delete it all and rebuild it. So I made you a little thing to show you kind of what it looks like. So if you delete one item, you just hold it. Same thing as building, delete one at a time. Now if you hold control, you notice it goes up to 50. We move our mouse around and we go, oh, oops, we deleted that power line, we deleted that stuff. Oh, we didn't want to delete all that stuff. So if you hold control, but if you press G first, for example, and we're going to do it on this wall, and it says dismantle filter wall. So then I can move my mouse anywhere, and it doesn't delete anything except for the wall up to 50 items. And then you click it, and it deletes it. And it's actually kind of a neat effect that you can leave power lines just in the air. But so again, we're going to hit G again, and now it's going to change to the full frame window. And it's not going to delete that window because it's a different window. So we'd have to hit G for the hex frame window, and G again for this window. And again, it puts a filter in so you can move your mouse around and not delete anything else on accident. If I want to delete just power lines, hit G, and then I can just do power lines, which are kind of hard to hit. And we're going to hit G again and hit just the wall outlets. So let's just move our mouse and catch all these wall outlets, which will get rid of those power lines as well. Hold that, and it deletes all those power lines. So that's just a quick thing for mass delete. And if you found any of these tips helpful, please do consider subscribing, because starting September 10th, we will definitely be doing a new save of Satisfactory 1.0. So thanks again for watching, and as always, let's get to work.